You will get to see our entire production area. Couple of things on that note. Production areas are inherently dangerous. There's equipment in there. Inherently dangerous to yourselves and our business, actually. So with all the equipment that you will be around, we ask that you keep your hands to yourself. We're going to go back to little old school rules here. That equipment is essential for us to actually be able to do what we do, which is provide you with delicious beer from a very local source. You break our equipment, we can't make you beer, you're going to be mad at us, I'm going to put it back on you. It's just how that's going to go. Cool? Awesome. No breaking equipment. Good deal. Secondly, please stay with the group. There are areas that you should not be in because they are dangerous or because they are filled with equipment. Please stay with the group. I am taking you into the areas that you are safe to be in. So stay with us and we will have a great time. If you don't stay with us, I will find you and have security with me. That's never a fun time for anyone except for me. So do that at your will. And last but not least, when we're in here especially, but also downstairs, this is not acoustically friendly. And as loud as I may seem, I do a few of these a day. So I'd appreciate your help in allowing me not to strain too much without me to yell over other things. I want everybody who wants to actually hear the information to be able to hear it. So if we could just keep side conversations to a whisper, that would be great. I'm not telling you not to talk at all. Just keep it to the subjects of how great our brewery is and how great your tour guide is, and we'll be great. Cool? All the way around? Awesome.
Yes.
Last but definitely not least, it is a little warm today outside. Thank God the sun is out, right? We are all very happy. But that makes it warm in here, and we don't have air conditioning in this area or any of our production areas, so we'll be warm through the tour today. If at some point you feel overheated, like you need to sit down or get some water, please do so. Really don't want to have to put my beer down to attend to you. So if you could just take that outside and sit in the air conditioning, that would be fantastic. Greatly appreciate that. But on a serious note, please do be careful and listen to yourself if you need to sit down and take a break for a little while. It will get a little toasty, especially with all the body heat in here. So be cautious. Thank you. On that note, cheers to you guys for coming out today. Really am thirsty and I get to carry beer, so why not consume some of it, right? So a few fun facts about St. Arnold. The first one is that we are the oldest craft brewery in the state of Texas. Did anybody know that when they came here today? Awesome. Some people can read too. I like it. Just kidding. I learned that in other methods as well. We were not the original craft brewery in Texas, actually. There were a few before us. But the craft beer scene has changed drastically over the last 25 plus years. Some of you may remember the older days of craft beer. Most of us probably don't. Most of us weren't involved in it. It was a very small community. Basically, the people that drank craft beer also made craft beer. That's about how big that community was. It has grown infinitely since then, which is a great thing for our business, right? Absolutely. So when we got started, things were different. We didn't open up a brewery this size. We basically had one beer option. That was Amber Ale. That was our original beer. That is the one that Brock Wagner, our owner, perfected with his old partner, Kevin Bartol. That was the first beer we ever distributed. By distributed, I mean that's a pretty big word for what we actually did. Basically, Brock put a keg into his car and drove it to a bar and was like, please put it on tap. Please? I promise it's good. And they said okay, which is strange. But they did, and it sold, and they asked for more, and we obliged. And from there, pretty much everything's history. We kept brewing more of amber, and then we kept making other beers as well, which has been pretty successful, since most of you are not drinking the same thing today, which is a good thing. We now have 14 year-round options. I say options and not beer because some of you may be aware that our newest option is not a beer. It is actually cider, which is not technically beer. What? We're in the cider game? Something we thought we would never do, because we said we would never do it. But we did. Every time you say you're not. And it's delicious. See? Ringing endorsements already. It is our original dry cider, if you're curious, and we do ferment that on site along with all of our beer. We also make our root beer and our Hop 2.0 on site, which are our two non-alcoholic options. So we have come a long way. Basically, there's something for the entire family, no matter who they are or what they drink. We can take care of you. Excuse me. Sorry, the weather changes are really hurting the throat a little bit. I apologize. So we are a very traditionally inspired brewery. We take a lot of notes from German inspiration and Belgian inspiration. And we consider ourselves a pretty old school brewery with a few exceptions. Most of what we're talking about when we're traditional methods is our ingredients. We typically stick to the main 4 beer ingredients, and those are water, malt, hops, and yeast. Technically, you don't need anything else to make a whole lot of really good beer. And by a lot, I don't mean a large quantity, obviously a large quantity, but actually a variety. Because each one of those ingredients is actually more like a category, and there are variations of each one of those ingredients that we use to make very different beers, which is why, like I said, you have 14 year-round options. That is not including our seasonals or our specialties or any of the other fun things we decide to come out with throughout the year that won't be offered all the time. So the first thing that we take into consideration pretty heavily is our water, obviously. You may be surprised, but you know that guy that you go out with and they're like, oh, you don't need water, you've got beer. We've all had that friend. If you don't know that friend, it's you, by the way. Usually that's how that one works. But they're not actually all the way wrong. Don't tell them that, ever. They don't need validation. But don't tell them they are right, ever. They are a little bit right. Your beer is about 90% water on average. There's a whole lot of water in that recipe. So we have to use the best source we have available, and here in Houston, that's pretty obvious. No?
Public water.
Obviously, Buffalo Bayou. Where else would we go for infinite amounts of water? Right? No? I mean, that's fair, but it's a little further away. We're like right on the bayou, so we go a little closer. No, I'm just kidding. We don't use bayou water, I promise. We use regular old City of Houston water because it's delicious and nutritious, and we all love it. No?
It's debatable.
Okay, good. So we're all sane today. I like it. That's a sanity check. We do use City of Houston water. There is no punchline there. But before it ever goes to touch any of our other ingredients, it is sent through our on-site reverse osmosis filtration system. So I promise you, you're not getting any contaminants in that water. In fact, once we send it through that filtration system, it is too pure for beer making needs. And we actually have to add minerals and salts back to that water. We have a different recipe of those minerals for every recipe of beer that we make. Sometimes we're actually mimicking a very old world style beer. We're going way back in the beer archives and doing something from a very specific region of the world at a specific time. In that case, we will as closely mimic the water source of that region as we can. It's never exact, but we do the best that we have available. So it's not all of us. Some of us are fully on the IPA train, and that's a good thing, but not all of us are. And that's typically what hops are associated with, right? Is IPAs, hop forward, bitterness, unpleasant. That's the nice version of the word I usually hear, but we'll go with unpleasantness, right? But that is so far from the only thing that we get from hops. Hops are in every single one of our beers. Every one of them. They're one of those 4 essential ingredients. We're not going to leave one out. We only have 4. We're not going to go down to 3 by choice. But luckily they do more than that. Hops are first and foremost a natural preservative, which is a pretty cool characteristic. But as far as your actual experience of drinking the beer goes, they do provide bitterness if we boil them for long enough. They do provide also flavors and aromas to your beer. So we're making it a full sensory experience by adding hops at different times throughout our boil. The original hop add, the earliest one, will boil for the longest period of time, and that's what gives you bitterness. You have to boil it for a longer period of time in order to get that byproduct. And a lot of times that is what we're going for. We tend to like a little bit of bitterness in our beers. We're beer people, that's what we do. But we use bitterness also to balance the flavors. I did mention sugar coming out of the grain. Sugar is sweet, right? But your beer is not sweet. Magic? No. It's a lot like cooking. You're balancing flavors with the different ingredients you have. What better way to balance sweetness than with bitterness? Sometimes you don't actually taste the level of bitterness we pull out. It's just so that you are not drinking pancake syrup. You're welcome. That sounds terrible. Yeah, I'm good. Some of you may think that's great, and we have other options for you, like root beer. But our beer is not all that sweet. The second hop add that we do is for flavors. I'm talking like floral, piney, citrusy, earthy, grassy flavors. You can pull a wide array of flavors out of hops. You actually probably never need to add other ingredients, though sometimes we do because it's fun and we enjoy that. Like I said, raspberry AF, fresh raspberries. I don't know if you can actually get raspberry flavor out of hops, but I'm sure somebody's working on it, if you can't already. We'll figure it out. You can pull really good citrus flavors and all kinds of other good things. The last hop add is for the aromas, and those typically will match up with the same flavor profiles. Like I said, we're trying to create a beer that is not just some hardly tolerable, somewhat functional beverage that we have to chug as quickly as possible to get through it. We've all had a couple of those. I won't name names. Ours is a little more enjoyable, and that's what we want. We want you to smell it start on that end of the room in our mash kettle. That is where we boil our grain and our water together. Like I said, we're extracting the sugar out of that grain, and that's really the only thing we're trying to do through that boil. After that's done, we move it into this kettle right here, which is our lauter time. And this is where we strain out that spent grain. Very simple process. We go through about 50,000 pounds of spent grain every week. So instead of putting that into a landfill, we opted for the more responsible option of sending it out to feedlots to become livestock feed, which is the most responsible thing we could possibly do before we start drinking. Once we are done straining out, we have our what we call wort, which is a terrible, terrible term, and all it means is multi-sugar water, essentially. That's it. It's just sugar water at this point. We send the wort down to the wort kettle, which is the one on the far end of the room, and that's where we add the hops. You can see this 3-top system in between the 2 kettles, and that's our hop doser. That is how we preload all 3 of those hop adds to drop at the right time throughout the boil. Once it's all hopped up and ready to go, we send it into our whirlpool, which is this one right here. The whirlpool will spin the liquid around at a very high rate of speed so that the solid and liquid basically separate, like a centrifuge type of action. We want to remove the solid hop sediment before we move it out to fermentation for the next phase of the process. Once that's done and we cool the liquid down, we fill up a fermenter, and that's where the real magic starts. In fermentation, we add yeast, and yeast is our 4th and final ingredient, and that's what initiates the magical phase of this process. The yeast, over a period of time, will convert the sugars that we pulled from the grains into 2 things, CO2 and alcohol. Beer. Yeah, cheers. Speaking of beer, let me get some of that. So that process of fermentation takes anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months for full completion. So basically it takes a lot of patience that I don't have, which is why I'm part of the reason I'm not a brewer. The difference comes with which beer we're making. Our ales ferment, ales in general, ferment closer to 2 weeks. Lagers ferment closer to 2 months, which is why we don't make very many lagers. We have 1 year-round lager, that's 5 o'clock pills. Our current seasonal, Springbok, is also a lager, as well as our next seasonal, Summer Pills. So Summer Pills is already sitting in some of those fermenters because it has to ferment for such a long period of time, and you guys want a lot of it ready at summer's beginning, which feels like about now, but it's actually not. Though it does feel like we're getting there really quickly this time. Once we're done with fermentation, anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months, we send it through our actual centrifuge. We take out any solid particles that might have formed in there or slipped through our filtration process up here. And then we send it straight into our packaging area, which puts it into cans, bottles, and kegs, so we can distribute it out to all the wonderful places that you guys love to enjoy it besides our brewery site. Our full distribution area is all the way around Texas and Louisiana, and that's it, by the way. So if you like our beer, you better stay close to home or you ain't gonna get it. You gotta come home to find it. But that's as far as we distribute, all across 2 states. That is all. Started. Welcome to St. Arnold. I already said that to most of you, but not all of you came from downstairs with me. So welcome one more time. My name is Christina. I am your tour guide this afternoon. We will mostly be in this room, but we will check out a couple of our other production areas today. This is our brew house. We'll be going out into fermentation and down into packaging today. So you will get to see our entire production area. Couple of things on that note. Production areas are inherently dangerous. There's equipment in there. Inherently dangerous to yourselves and our business, actually. So with all the equipment that you will be around, we ask that you keep your hands to yourself. We're gonna go back to little old school rules here. That equipment is essential for us to actually be able to do what we do, which is provide you with delicious beer from a very local source. You break our equipment, we can't make you beer, you're gonna be mad at us, I'm gonna put it back on you. It's just how that's gonna go. Cool? Awesome. No breaking equipment. Good deal. Secondly, please stay with the group. There are areas that you should not be in because they are dangerous or because they are filled with equipment. Please stay with the group. I am taking you into the areas that you are safe to be in. So stay with us and we will have a great time. If you don't stay with us, I will find you and have security with me. That's never a fun time for anyone except for me. So do that at your will. And last but not least, when we're in here especially, but also downstairs, this is not acoustically friendly. And as loud as I may seem, I do a few of these a day. So I'd appreciate your help in allowing me not to strain too much without me to yell over other things. I want everybody who wants to actually hear the information to be able to hear it. So if we could just keep side conversations to a whisper, that would be great. I'm not telling you not to talk at all. Just keep it to the subjects of how great our brewery is and how great your tour guide is, and will be great. Cool? All the way around? Awesome.
Yes.
Last but definitely not least, it is a little warm today outside. Thank God the sun is out, right? We are all very happy. But that makes it warm in here, and we don't have air conditioning in this area or any of our production areas, so we'll be warm through the tour today. If at some point you feel overheated, like you need to sit down or get some water, please do so. Really don't want to have to put my beer down to attend to you. So if you could just take that outside and sit in the air conditioning, that would be fantastic. Greatly appreciate that. But on a serious note, please do be careful and listen to yourself if you need to sit down and take a break for a little while. It will get a little toasty, especially with all the body heat in here. So be cautious. Thank you. On that note, cheers to you guys for coming out today. Really am thirsty and I get to carry beer, so why not consume some of it, right? So a few fun facts about St. Arnold. The first one is that we are the oldest craft brewery in the state of Texas. Did anybody know that when they came here today? Awesome. Some people can read too. I like it. Just kidding. I learned that in other methods as well. We were not the original craft brewery in Texas, actually. There were a few before us, but the craft beer scene has changed drastically over the last 25 plus years. Some of you may remember the older days of craft beer. Most of us probably don't. Most of us weren't involved in it. It's a very small community. Basically, the people that drank craft beer also made craft beer. That's about how big that community was. It has grown infinitely since then, which is a great thing for our business, right? Absolutely. So when we got started, things were different. We didn't open up a brewery this size. We basically had one beer option. That was Amber Ale. That was our original beer. That is the one that Brock Wagner, our owner, perfected with his old partner, Kevin Bartol. That was the first beer we ever distributed. By distributed, I mean that's a pretty big word for what we actually did. Basically, Brock put a keg into his car and drove it to a bar and was like, please put it on tap. Please, I promise it's good. And they said okay, which is strange. But they did, and it sold, and they asked for more, and we obliged. And from there, pretty much everything's history. We kept brewing more of Amber, and then we kept making other beers as well, which has been pretty successful, since most of you are not drinking the same thing today, which is a good thing. We now have 14 year-round options. I say options and not beer because some of you may be aware that our newest option is not a beer. It is actually cider, which is not technically beer. What? We're in the cider game? Something we thought we would never do, because we said we would never do it. But we did. Every time you say you're not. And it's delicious. See? Ringing endorsements already. It is our original dry cider, if you're curious. And we do ferment that on site along with all of our beer. We also make our root beer and our Hop 2.0 on site, which are our two non-alcoholic options. So we have come a long way. Basically, there's something for the entire family, no matter who they are or what they drink. We can take care of you. Excuse me. Sorry, the weather changes are really hurting the throat a little bit. I apologize. So we are a very traditionally inspired brewery. We take a lot of notes from German inspiration and Belgian inspiration. And we consider ourselves a pretty old school brewery with a few exceptions. Most of what we're talking about when we're saying we're inspired by traditional methods is our ingredients. We typically stick to the main 4 beer ingredients, and those are water, malt, hops, and yeast. Technically, you don't need anything else to make a whole lot of really good beer. And by a lot, I don't mean a large quantity, obviously a large quantity, but actually a variety. Because each one of those ingredients is actually more like a category, and there are variations of each one of those ingredients that we use to make very different beers, which is why, like I said, you have 14 year-round options. That is not including our seasonals or our specialties or any of the other fun things we decide to come out with throughout the year that won't be offered all the time. So the first thing that we take into consideration pretty heavily is our water, obviously. You may be surprised, but you know that guy that you go out with and they're like, oh, you don't need water, you've got beer. We've all had that friend. If you don't know that friend, it's you, by the way. Usually that's how that one works. But they're not actually all the way wrong. Don't tell them that, ever. They don't need validation. But don't tell them they are right, ever. They are a little bit right. Your beer is about 90% water on average. There's a whole lot of water in that recipe. So we have to use the best source we have available. And here in Houston, that's pretty obvious. No?
Public water.
Obviously Buffalo Bayou. Where else would we go for infinite amounts of water? regular old City of Houston water because it's delicious and nutritious and we all love it. No?
It's debatable.
Okay, good. So we're all sane today. I like it. That's a sanity check. We do use City of Houston water. There is no punchline there. But before it ever goes to touch any of our other ingredients, it is sent through our on-site reverse osmosis filtration system. So I promise you, you're not getting any contaminants in that water. In fact, once we send it through that filtration system, it is too pure for beer making needs. And we actually have to add minerals and salts back to that water. We have a different recipe of those minerals for every recipe of beer that we make. Sometimes we're actually mimicking a very old world style beer. We're going way back in the beer archives and doing something from a very specific region of the world at a specific time. In that case, we will as closely mimic the water source of that region as we can. It's never exact, but we do the best that we have available. I promise I'm yelling as loud as I can. If you need to get louder, let me know. Just yell at me from the back. A couple of fun things about our tank farm. We have over 30 fermentation tanks down here, most of which are full and fermenting beer. For instance, we just found out that this one is holding lawnmower. So if you're a big fan of lawnmower, we got French lawnmower on the make right now. This is where our beer spends the majority of the time when it's in our facility. Upstairs, it only takes a couple hours to brew a beer. But down here, as I mentioned, it's several weeks at least. Once we are done with fermentation, the filtration area is down on that end of our facility, which no, we cannot go down there, I apologize. And then it will go into packaging, which we will be walking into after this. So it is a pretty short process of transferring the beer around to get it from phase 1 to phase done, which is where you want it to be, so you can drink it. Another fun fact about our tanks is they are all named, as you can see by the one behind me. We had a few different naming methods for our tanks. One of them was patron saints. We are St. Arnold Brewing Company after all, so patron saints seemed like a really good place to start with naming tanks. But we didn't get all the way through all of them with patron saints, so we went to another method of using long-standing employees and investors who really helped us either get the ball rolling with our brewery or keep us open, which was a difficult thing for a period of time. Though that didn't get us through all of our tanks either. So we went the next logical route, which was auctioning off the naming rights on eBay, obviously. Where else? What else would we do? So that's what got us things like Saint Sambomeister, which is not a saint, though close. That is somebody's dog. Yes, it is Sambomeister. That is somebody's beloved animal. And we honor him on a tank forever. Our tanks are named for life. They will never be changed. They may not be used forever, but they will still be on display. We'll probably just put it outside and let everybody still see the name of it forever and ever and ever. So, fun facts. Questions, comments, concerns?
What's hot liquor versus cold liquor?
Water.
Okay.
If you didn't hear that question, hot liquor and cold liquor are what is labeled on these tanks over here. That is just hot and cold water. It is not hot toddies, I promise. I wish. It would have been nice in those cold that we had, but it's not. And RO is our reverse osmosis, if you saw that one and had questions as well.
How do you clean the tanks after fermentation has happened?
So we have basically sprayers inside that will, at high pressure, spray really hot water and some chemicals that are of like an iodine base, essentially sanitizing the equipment. Beer making is a very sanitary process. If we do not keep all of our equipment completely sanitary and keep all contaminants out, your beer will be very dangerous to drink. And that is definitely not on our plan. That is how you don't keep customers, is by killing them. That didn't seem like a good idea, so we went with sanitizing everything really, really well. Seemed like a better option. Questions? Any other questions? I believe that is our control monitor. So all of these are temperature controlled and monitored. We have a very small temperature range that we have to keep our beer within while it's fermenting. And really that's due to the yeast. Yeast has to be at a very specific temperature to activate and do its job, which is creating alcohol, so it has to do its job because we can't do its job for it. And so with that temperature monitor, basically make sure that everything is in the right range. If not, it gets dumped because we can't use it. That's what our drains all the way down the floors are for, along with our tears. Not often at all. I don't remember the last time I heard them having done something. backgrounds too, so they think through things very, very thoroughly before they make a move and do anything. We test things out like 55 times before we go full production level on it. Any other questions? Awesome. We're going to move into packaging, which is straight through that red door behind us. Like I mentioned earlier, we put our beer into 3 main vessels, and that is kegs, cans, and bottles. Those are the 3 most accessible stuff we focus on. If you are curious about things like cask engines, we can talk about that offline, because most people here in the U.S. have no idea what that is, and we're going to leave it there. It's perfectly fine. So we start our kegging right here around this yellow crane arm over here. It's the smallest area of our packaging facility, but the biggest vessel, mostly because nobody wants to move full kegs. Those are really heavy. So kegging is basically right here. It's a small rectangle. We put the kegs onto the conveyor belts, we fill them, carbonate them, cap them, put them on a pallet like that, wrap them up, and they're done. That's it. It's a pretty quick process. One guy runs kegging at a time. That's it. Yeah, it's a lot of work for one dude, but there's no other space for anyone else. So that is not full, by the way, or they wouldn't be left out here. Our beer stays cold. From fermentation through packaging and storage, our beer is cold. That is how it stays fresh and good. That is why you actually get some shelf life off of it. So once we are done kegging it up, we put it into our cold box and wait for our distributors to come grab it from us and take it out to all the wonderful places that you guys get it. Canning starts on the back wall in that red cage. And as you can see, we have some cans ready lined up for Monday morning, and that is Springbok. If you could not tell at a glance from this distance, that is Springbok cans. That is our current seasonal. So that is what will be packaged most likely on Monday morning. And we will put the cans into that cage. It will go through the full conveyor belt maze, which goes on the other side of this keg fort that we were standing in front of. We will go see that in a minute. On that conveyor belt maze, those cans will be sanitized, filled, carbonated, capped, put in 6-pack carriers and cases. The cases are what will come out where you see this robot arm just past this piece of machinery right here. So let's go down that way. We will check out the end of canning and start bottling. It's a very similar process to canning, not a whole lot different, with just one added exception. You may see some summer pills containers all around us down here. And that is most likely because they will be actually packaging summer pills on Monday. It seems early, I know, but I am ready and some of you are too. So we'll put an entire pallet of bottles into this cage. You can see an entire pallet of empty bottles over here for reference. Some of them have already been depalletized on the conveyor belt just past this piece of equipment. They will be pushed down to a single file stream because we can only fill one vessel at a time. And they will again be sanitized. They will be filled, carbonated. Labeled is the extra fun step on this one, by the way. Capped to put into 6-pack carriers. The 6-pack carriers will be cased up and they will come out right here for this robot arm to then palletize as well. We only put 60 cases on these pallets because bottles are a little taller and a little more fragile. So that seems safe. We try to be safe when we can. So that is the end of our packaging area in total. One more fun added fact about packaging is that during the process, each can and bottle will be stamped with a date and time. That date and time is when we packaged it in this facility so that you guys know that date, because our beer does have a shelf life of about 90 days, give or take. That is because we don't pasteurize our beer and we don't add any additional preservatives to it. So it does not last forever, which is a really good thing. That means it's a fresh product, which is exactly what you want. After 90 days, the flavor, the carbonation, the color of it can start to change, and it can start to go downhill and deteriorate. So you want to make sure you drink it before that time frame. If you're ever wondering, just flip it over, you'll see the date and you'll know exactly when it was done. The difference comes with our specialties. Bishop's barrels, Divine Reserves, Pumpkinators, things like that, those can be kept for years. They have a higher ABV and a lower hop content. I know I said hops are a natural preservative, and that is true, up to a point. After that 90-day period, they become the opposite of a preservative. They actually make it mature at a not good way, in a not good way, at a much faster rate. Yeah. So IPAs, stick with that 90 days, for sure, for ours anyway. One more fun little story for you guys, it was asked once, and it is always how I end my tours, is about St. Arnold himself. Does anybody happen to know the story of St. Arnold? All right, I guess I'll do my own job. Fine. Making me work for it today, y'all. So St. Arnold is actually one of the patron saints of brewing in the Catholic Church. That's a real thing, by the way. So you know.
Oh, wow.
Cheers to that. Just thirsty again, I promise. So St. Arnold really is. He is the patron saint of brewing. By the way, beer making, brewing, and other alcohol making processes have a long, rich history in the religious background, in the religious culture. Most alcohols were originally brewed in monasteries, and beer is no different. So that is why there are actually patron saints of brewing. That is a real thing. There are actually more patron saints of brewing than any other occupation. Yeah, you can verify that, I promise. I did the research before telling you guys that, I promise. Because I knew you weren't going to believe me. So St. Arnold was apparently, in our opinion, by apparently I mean he totally was, the absolute coolest patron saint of brewing. He had the best stories. It was his message to his congregation and pretty much anyone who would listen that beer was a gift from God. Yeah,
Okay.
obviously. I don't know what further. Not only did he say that beer was a gift from God, he said that you shouldn't drink water, that water is actually really bad for you. You should drink beer instead, because beer is healthy for you. It will help you live longer, happier, and more prosperous. And most people said, okay. Yeah, sure. The priest said I had to drink beer, honey. Sorry, bye. Gotta go to the bar. It was a good excuse, right? Some people didn't listen. You know what happened to them? They died. Yeah, they died. Yeah. It wasn't divine intervention or just Darwinism at its best, though that's not totally off base. When your priest tells you to drink, you do it. But they actually died from serious water contamination. Their water was essentially pasture runoff and sewer water at the time. That's all they were drinking, which will kill you if you weren't sure. It absolutely will. Beer was the safest option at the time because, as I mentioned, there's a lot of water in our beer recipe, but I also mentioned the boiling phases. We boil our beer 2 times during the process. All of that high temperature boil will kill off any harmful contaminants. Therefore, beer was the healthy option. Whether it is today is between you and your medical professional or religious leader or whoever you choose to listen to. But I am legally not supposed to tell you that that is the healthier option. You know where I stand on things, so obviously I wouldn't work here otherwise. Anyway, cheers guys. I really enjoyed hanging out with you today.